Hello everyone, Dave here, back with another video. I just got back from watching the new Haikyu movie, The Dumpster Battle. I have my Karasuno high school shirt on. It's backwards in the phone, so sorry about that. But yeah, I came back from watching the movie, and I just wanted to talk about it, share my thoughts, a little review, if you will, on the film. And going into it, I saw that at least on the Haikyu Reddit or subreddit, because I'm that much of a dork that I go on anime subreddits. But some people had posted their impressions of the film, and I read a few that said that they were a little disappointed with it. The main consensus being like that it took stuff out from the Japanese release, which I think might be the case, because when I looked on Google, like when I was looking up screen times, it said that the film was about, like an hour and 40 minutes. And I wound up walking out of there at just over an hour. So I think they probably did take out stuff. But I I was a little confused as to that, and like also it's differences and similarities versus the manga. I don't read the manga, unfortunately. When it comes to Haikyu, I'm anime only. But I prepared for this film. I watched seasons 1 through 3 over the course of a weekend. Like this video is going to come out a little late, but or not this past weekend, but like over Memorial Day weekend. So it was this past. Time is an illusion. I don't know what day it is anymore. But over the Memorial Day weekend, I watched seasons 1 through 3, and then this past week I watched season 4 to get ready and in the right headspace for the movie. Because I'm a big Haikyu fan. I've been a fan for years. I really love it. It's one of my favorite anime of all time. And I gotta say, I walked out of the film not really knowing what those people were talking about, to a degree. I mean, I get, I get it if you watched one version of the film and then they took stuff out in the other version, like that could be a little bit different. But I walked out of the dubbed version of this film, the English release, whatever you want to call it, really happy. I thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was a really, really good film. At least for an anime film, it was phenomenal. One of the best movies I've seen, or at least one of the best anime movies I've seen in a while. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about it and some of my favorite parts, and also my thoughts or wonderings about what Haikyu is going to do going forward. So avoiding spoilers, they ended on an interesting note. There's a lot that can be done here. There's more schools for Karasuno to go up against. Of course, they've got Tokoyami. I think I'm bad with names. I'm going to say that right now. They've got Fukurodani still in it. They've got the school. I don't know the name of the school, or I can't remember the name of the guy, but like he was in the top 3 spikers with Wakatoshi. They showed him in season 4 at the youth camp that Kageyama was at. He wore like a mask, and he was like a little bit of a germaphobe. I don't know if his school is still in the tournament. I don't know what they're really going to do with that character. But there's a lot that they can build off of. And I think after seeing this movie, I think Haikyu works really well in a movie format. Seeing it on the big screen is how you really need to watch this movie. Hearing the thwack of the ball as it hits the spiker's hand and then hits the court, hearing the crowd roar, hearing the players celebrate after they scored a point. It's like when it first hit me in the beginning of the film, I like had to jump up a little bit, like, because it startled me. But in a good way. I was like, whoa, like we're really in this. Like, it's one thing watching it, at home on your TV, then it's pretty hype, but like in the theater with all the sound blasting at you with the big screen, it feels like it like, to quote the youth, it hits different. It's a cool feeling. So if they want to continue with like movies, because I'm pretty sure, at least that's what everyone has been saying, and that's what even the Wikipedia page says, is To the Top was the final season of Haikyu. Now, I know that's not always accurate because Bleach had their final season, and then they either came back or coming back with a new season. I don't watch Bleach, so I don't really know what the timeline is there. But crazier things than have happened than Haikyu potentially getting a 5th season. But if they decide that they just want to do movies, like 2 or 3 more movies to finish it out, I can definitely see that happening. And that would, probably be a good way to do it, honestly. It was a lot of fun. So, anyway, that's just a little bit of my thoughts on the future. But the movie itself, this was a very interesting film because, one, it's the cap to a long-standing, like, overarching plot that we've seen throughout the entire series, which is the Karasuno and Nekoma rivalry. The reason that it's such a big deal in the context of the story is because this is the first time that they're squaring off, at least the first time with this new era of players, that they're squaring off in official capacity. To this point, they had only been practice games, in training camps and such. So it was very cool to see that. But it was also cool because this isn't really, this isn't really a story about Kaguya. I'm saying both names at once. Hinata and Kageyama, like the whole series has been. You know, obviously we touch on the third years, and we touch on Suki, and we touch on Tadashi, and we definitely give credit, to other players, like, the Maya twins in season 4, and we touch on Abajosai and Oikawa in season 2, and so other players get their spotlight and get, their flashbacks and the reasons, why they joined volleyball and their motivations for wanting to win. But this movie, the main character of it was actually Kenma, which I thought was a very interesting move, and one that kind of worked out because it was very cool. Again, like I said, we get little snippets from other teams, but it was cool to see, to actually see a full kind of span of, I don't want to say it was a whole arc, but I'm trying to think of, what another, comparable word would be. But, this whole span of this story was from Kenma's perspective. It wasn't just little bits and pieces. Yes, of course, we touched on Karasuno, and obviously they're the main characters of the series, but a lot of the story progression was from Kenma's perspective, which was very cool. I thought that was interesting. It's definitely a unique way to tell your stories, to basically tell your story about your main characters, but from the view of somebody else. So that was cool. We got to see a little bit of Kenma growing up and his friendship with, oh God, I'm so bad with names. I'm so sorry. But the black-haired guy on Nekoma, the spiky-haired guy, and their friendship and how that blossomed, and them joining up with the Nekoma volleyball team together, and what that looks like. We did get to see, of course, Shoyo and Kageyama, grow a little bit. I do feel like Kageyama didn't have a big role to play in this film. I thought, which I kind of figured, from the start, we kind of knew this movie was going to be mainly centered on Shoyo and Kenma's rivalry. But there was a lot less of the other Karasuno guys than I would have liked, honestly. I really, for example, at the end of this is a spoiler, but also it's not really a spoiler, because you kind of know, I guess spoiler, Karasuno wins, but you kind of know that. But at the end, I want to see our boys. I want to see our boys celebrate and whatever, but it doesn't really focus on that too much. It instead shows Nekoma and how they react to losing, which is interesting, don't get me wrong, but I want to see our boys be able to celebrate and, their reactions to that. But it was pretty cathartic to see kind of the cap on this long-standing rivalry, on this long-standing story. It kind of brings a tear to your eye knowing that, at least for right now, Haikyu is done. It's over. Again, they're probably going to do more, I would think. But as of right now, it's done. At least the anime. I mean, the manga's been done, but so it was cool to see that, and it was cool to see both these teams, kind of embrace each other and be like, hey, good game, you did great, or I loved how you played, blah, blah, blah. Which is one thing that I've always loved about not only the Nakamon Karasuno rivalry, but like Haikyu as a whole, is that, it's kind of, for someone who watches a lot of anime like myself, there's nobody in this show that is a bad guy. They're just opponents. Like, even Oikawa, being, a bit of a tyrannical dictator, he's not a bad person. He's just very egotistical and takes his role seriously. And the Maya twins, they weren't, they were a bit, at least the blonde hair one. Again, I'm so bad with names. I'm really sorry. But he was a bit, dickish sometimes, but he wasn't like a bad guy. You know what I mean? So that's one thing I've always appreciated about Haikyu, is they do a really good job at writing their characters to be, not bad people. They're just the antagonist. And I think the writing in this movie, and more specifically the choreography, was really good. There were some really intense volleys that it's just like, you don't know what's going to happen. It's going one side to one side to one. I mean, I'm literally explaining what a volley is. But like, you're like, when's it going to drop? When's the ball going to... And the camera and the writing and the animation does a really good job at keeping you invested and keeping you like kind of knowing what's going on as the ball's flying back and forth. And then showing that from different characters' perspective, whether it's the ones on the court, or the ones in the stands, or the ones watching from afar. It's really cool. There's one scene where they do a whole volley from Kenma's perspective, but literally a first-person perspective, which was really neat. I don't think I've seen anything like that before in an anime film. And that was really, really cool. As someone who's been a fan of the series for a long time, one, that's a shot that I don't think the series has done at all. But also it was just cool to see this thing that we know, obviously at this point, if you watched all of Haikyu, you know it very well. You know volleyball very well to this point. But it's cool to see that from a different perspective that not a lot of people see. Because like somebody like myself, I love the show, and I become a fan of volleyball because of the show. But I've never played. Maybe like once or twice in gym class growing up. But like, I don't know what it looks like to actually be on a court and have, everybody running around and the ball flying up in the air and spiking down at you. So it was cool to see that. In a capacity. So, what else can I say about the movie? Animation was good, writing was good. I thought, again, the ending was I think solid. Like, there's enough there that you could kind of just end it there and leave the rest up to interpretation, or just basically say, hey, go read the manga if you want to know the rest. But the way that they ended it, at least in the bonus kind of credit scene at the end, they kind of like are hinting at the fact that like, hey, we're going to do more. I just don't know the capacity. But if they want to finish it out with movies, I think that's a strong way to go. Because again, I really enjoyed watching Haikyu on the big screen. And I think that's something that everybody needs to try. Because it just hit. It just felt different. It hit different. And it was hype. It was so like... It's hard to not scream in the theater, but I was like, every time Karasuno scored, I'd be looking at my buddy like, let's go. Like, obviously I couldn't, yell it because I don't want to disrupt the people around me. But I was like, it was hype. It was a cool feeling, and it was a very hype film, a really good movie, at least for an anime movie. Honestly, like, I don't want to frame it under good for an anime movie. I think it was good for a movie. Obviously, there's a lot in there that, being a Haikyu fan, like, if you didn't see the series, you wouldn't know or understand or get. But I still think the main story of, hey, I'm, at least coming from Kenma's perspective of, like, I don't even know if I like this, but I do it because my friend likes it. Growing into like, hey, I love volleyball, I think is something that can be pretty relatable. I mean, maybe not specifically about volleyball, but like basically the story of like finding your place and finding your passion for something is, I think, something that a lot of us can relate to in some capacity. So yeah, again, great film. I'm very excited to see what Haikyu does next. But as of right now, it's over, and it's very bittersweet. But I think, you know, the only thing I really think that was negative about the film is something I mentioned earlier. Is like I wanted to see more of our boys, you know? Like, again, I thought it was very interesting to shift the focus to Kenma and to Nekama. I thought that was very interesting. Don't get me wrong, and that's a positive of the film. But just like as somebody who's, especially over the past week, watched so much Haikyu, I wanted to see our guys like a little bit more. I wanted to see their reactions to winning, more than we got. It just seemed like it wasn't. It just, for me, it just felt like it wasn't enough. I don't know. Maybe I'm alone in that. But I wish we got more of that. I wish we got more of their feelings and to winning and everything. But it did seem like, you know, a lot of the characters kind of came out of their shell a little bit. You know, it was still there's still the running gag of Kageyama not really wanting to say nice things to Hinata is still a very funny kind of running gag. But there were points where he was very like cordial and upfront with him. There was a nice scene with Tsukishima and Tadashi, you know, congratulating one another, which you don't often see, at least from Tsukishima. So there was a lot of cool moments of our Karasuno guys, but I just kind of wish there was a little bit more, especially for how much this meant to not only Nekama, but to Karasuno as well. So I wanted to see a little bit more from both sides rather than just one. But all in all, I think it was a great film. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend seeing it in theaters if you can. I don't know when this when this review is going up, so it might not be in theaters anymore. I don't know, but if you have the opportunity, go watch it. And yeah, that's it. Karasuno forever, fly high. Let's see what they do next. That's pretty much it. See you guys. Have a great day.